I'm Hunter, and we hear about all of the horror movies in October, Halloween season, about the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens, the Nightmare on Elm Streets. But what about the stuff that's just underneath the surface that you might not have heard of? These are some underrated horror gems, and there's 13 of them, so we've got quite a few to get to. Let's get right to the list. So kicking it off, we've got 10 to Midnight from Scream Factory. This is the physical media release. If you don't need the physical media release, you can watch it on streaming. This stars Charles Bronson, and you might know Charles Bronson from Death Wish or some of his action movies from the 70s and 80s, but 10 to Midnight is definitely a horror movie, and it's definitely one of the only horror movies out there about somebody who kills people when they're naked. And you get that, and so it is a bit campy in that way, but the performances here are pretty damn good. The action scenes where it's Charles Bronson trying to catch this killer, especially after he's going after his daughter, and the soundtrack and all of that come together for just an excellent, excellent horror movie, an excellent slasher movie that has a pretty interesting perspective. You don't get a lot of slasher movies like this where the villain is so outwardly charismatic and outwardly talky and almost just like a real criminal, not just some supernatural guy with a knife or whatever. So 10 to Midnight is an excellent, excellent horror movie. If you haven't checked it out, it is very underrated. A lot of Charles Bronson's movies, you know, Once Upon a Time in the West and all of that, get a lot of press, a lot of buzz. 10 to Midnight does not, however, and if you haven't seen it, it's a whole hell of a lot of fun. And plus, you get to see a scene where Charles Bronson holds up a sex toy to a guy and asks him what he uses it for. That is worth the price of admission alone. Number 2, we have Hobo with a Shotgun, and I know this one might not be strictly horror, but there are some definitely horror elements in this film. This originally started off as one of the Grindhouse trailers from the double feature with Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, and Hobo with a Shotgun was a contest winner. They won a contest to get their trailer in the movie, and then they ended up making the actual movie out of the trailer. And so this one, it stars Rutger Hauer. This is an excellent release from Umbrella, and they do a great job. I got this one from Amoeba Music here in Los Angeles. But Hobo with a Shotgun is just action, sort of horror, gore goodness. And if you haven't seen this one, it is a wild ride. You go through a range of emotions, a range of violence. Rutger Hauer gets put through the ringer in this one. The other actress that stars alongside him, she gets put through the ringer. The villain gets put through the ringer. It goes into, you know, subjects that aren't necessarily pretty, like homelessness and like homeless people being forgotten about and, you know, spat out and chewed up by society. And this movie goes into it. It also has just this killer, you know, it's sort of weird alternate reality where, you know, capitalism has gone, you know, way too far, and you get this movie. And Hobo with a Shotgun, Rutger Hauer, I know it might not be strictly a horror movie, but that horror definition, it's pretty broad. You can fit this definitely into that somewhere. And if you like gore, and you like Rutger Hauer, you like 80s styled movies, you will love Hobo with a Shotgun. You can get this released from Umbrella. It is region free, so you can just buy it wherever you want, play it in your Blu-ray player. It's great. Hobo with a Shotgun, an amazing, amazing, underrated gem. Next up, we have Joe Lynch's Mayhem, and it stars one of the horror queens of today in Samara Weaving. It stars Steven Yeun, and this one is just a balls-to-the-wall, outrageous, wild ride. It is just basically everything that you would want out of a horror film, and just if you love Joe Lynch's films, you'll love this. It's one of my favorites from him, and he's a great director. He directed Suitable Flesh. He directed an episode of Creepshow. This movie is just wild, and if you have not seen this movie, it's basically like a virus takes over an office building, and they're under quarantine, and people start getting sort of wild. They start acting out their wildest impulses. And you get that, and you get some excellent action here. If you love Samara Weaving, went from her work from Ready or Not, the upcoming Azrael, I think it just came out, whatever, Scream 6. If you love her, you will love this movie. If you love Steven Yeun from The Walking Dead, from anything that he's been in, from Invincible as his voice work, you will love this movie. If you haven't seen Mayhem, you owe it to yourself, because Joe Lynch is such a great, his direction here is so strong, it's so powerful, and you get it all in this movie, and you get a very satisfying horror flick in Mayhem if you love that sort of office spacey vibe mixed with horror. Fourth on the list, we have Scare Package. I mentioned this one in my 31 movies for Halloween if you want to watch that video, But Scare Package originally came out on Shudder. It is an anthology film that basically lampoons horror movies as we know it. And if you love anthology films like Creepshow, like Body Bags, other films like that, you will love Scare Package. It goes deep into just what it means to be a horror fan. It's hilarious, it's gross, it's funny, it's horror-filled. It's the total package. You get great characters in this. It has an overarching story through the little segments that lampoon horror movies. Scare Package 2, Rad Chad's Revenge. I can't laugh without saying that title. That movie is, I like it a little better than this one, but I put the first one on this list just so if you like this one, you will love Scare Package 2. But Scare Package, it has Joe Bob Briggs in it. It was mentioned or shown on The Last Drive-In. That episode is included on the disc here as well for physical media fans. And this one, it's just an excellent, excellent anthology horror film for people that love horror. If you love horror movies, you will love Scare Package, and you will love what it has to say because it makes fun of them, and making fun of yourself is a big thing in a genre film at a certain point. You got to make fun of what you are. Scare Package does that. It is an underrated gem for horror movie fans. Fifth, we have Girls' Night Out, and this one, it might look weird. There's a weirdo bear on the cover here. This is the Arrow video release for Scream Factory fans, for physical media fans. This is the Arrow video release. It comes with the slipcover. There's the original poster. This one, it is a bit of more of a slow burn. It does have Hal Holbrook from Creepshow, and this one, it's more of a wintertime horror movie. So if you're looking for a fall vibe, this might not match that. But this one is still great. It has some great scares, some great kills, and just a lot of intrigue as to who the actual killer is. And it unravels. It's a nice mystery as you go through it here. But it's about, if you love sorority, fraternity, college, slasher films, Girls' Night Out is up there with some of the best. And I don't see people talking about this film a whole lot, and it's just fun. It might not be the greatest movie ever, but it's fun. It's underrated, and people should go see it. You should go get the physical media copy if you need to. But yeah, it's a lot of tension, a lot of suspense that builds throughout, and it has a really surprising ending. I did not see it coming when the first time I saw this movie, and then in subsequent rewatches, it still is a bit mysterious as to how the whole ending fits together, but Girls' Night Out is one that you cannot miss if you love slasher films, especially those on college campuses. We have a movie from Wes Craven, and you're asking yourself, how can a movie from Wes Craven be underrated? Well, when you're talking about the guy who invented Freddy Krueger, who has invented Scream or directed Scream, who has reinvented the horror genre multiple times over, this movie was supposed to be the Freddy Krueger killer. This was his movie that he did after A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it flopped. It did not do very well in the theater, but it is an awesome movie. Mitch Pileggi is a great slasher villain here. It's wild, it's cartoonish, it feels a lot like the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels almost, where Freddy is doing insane things to the protagonist, and this movie does that and more. It has a great soundtrack, really a lot of heavy metal classics in this film soundtrack, and just, a lot of people know about A Nightmare on Elm Street. A lot of people love Freddy Krueger. They don't know a lot about Shocker, and you should watch Shocker, especially if you're a fan of Wes Craven. If you're any kind of horror fan, you should watch all of Wes Craven's movies. It's just like a horror textbook. And so Shocker should be a part of that horror textbook, learning or whatever. But it's about a serial killer that gets put to the electric chair that comes back with electrical powers and stuff like that. So you get a bunch of stuff where it's, people get sucked into TVs and cartoonish sort of action. But Shocker is a great one that just gets a little bit forgotten in the filmography of Wes Craven. We have Phantom of the Opera, and speaking of films that get lost in the filmography of people, Phantom of the Opera stars Robert Englund, and yes, it says he was Freddy, and now he's the Phantom of the Opera. This one, it's not what you think when you sit down to watch this movie. This is more of a cerebral, a slower burn film, and this one, it comes from director Dwight H. Little, who did Halloween 4, which is probably my second or third favorite Halloween movie, probably the best sequel in that series. And Phantom of the Opera, it doesn't follow your traditional slasher sort of plot structure. It does go back and forth between time periods and stuff like that, but this one, Robert Englund plays the Phantom of the Opera, the character, and the makeup here, he does look a little bit like Freddy Krueger, but the makeup here is excellent, the plot here is excellent, it does have some great kills, some great gory kills here, and it does leave you on a bit of a twist at the end of it, and it does have a sort of unofficial sequel in Dance Macabre, which also stars Robert Englund, but they they changed around that plot so that it isn't really a sequel to this film. But this film is definitely underrated. Get the physical media copy if you can, and if you love Robert Englund, like, you need to see this, because Robert Englund, he's more than just Freddy Krueger. He's been in tons of films. This is a great one if you haven't checked it out. So check out Phantom of the Opera, and check out Robert Englund as well. Number 8 on our list, we have Freeway, and this is from Vinegar Syndrome. This is a sort of modern-day retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and it's a really messed up retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. So we've got Kiefer Sutherland and Reese Witherspoon here. Yes, Reese Witherspoon in a horror movie. That's crazy, right? Here's the art that they commissioned. Here's the disturbing art on the back of the slipcover here. But Freeway is just... It tells the story of, what's her name? Vanessa Lutz is Reese Witherspoon's character here, and she's a mess. She's a hot mess of a person. She's going to her grandmother's house because she's been forced there. She has drug issues, stuff like that. It's a modern retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, where the big bad wolf is played by Kiefer Sutherland, and it takes some twists and turns. There's some awesome makeup effects. Just overall, this is a fantastic film, especially if you like those sort of retellings of horror movies, of classic fairy tales, where they take it and they spin it with horror elements. You'll love Freeway. You will love this film. Check it out. I have to watch the sequel still. I haven't watched the sequel, but the original, the first one from Vinegar Syndrome, is an excellent physical media release as well. It has excellent picture quality. The special features are out of this world. This one was also featured on The Last Drive-In, so you can watch it with Joe Bob Briggs's commentary if you want to. Freeway is an underrated classic if you have never seen it, so make sure you do. 9 on our list, we have The First Power, and this has Lou Diamond Phillips in it. This one is about another serial killer that comes back to life. This one is, like I said before with some of our other films here, it is cerebral. It does not follow your normal slasher sort of vibes and plot structure. The First Power, Lou Diamond Phillips is a force of nature in this movie, and the killer here, played by Jeff Kober, is just to die for. He is excellent, so scary, so menacing, especially when he, comes back from the dead to chase after the cop that got him. And it is just an excellent, excellent film. The VFX here are amazing. They come from the guy who did the VFX in Terminator 2. And just an excellent film overall. I don't see a lot of people talking about this one either. It is a great horror movie if you haven't checked it out. The First Power, supernatural, serial killer vibes, just all around a fun time to watch, and you can get it. This is a Region B release, however, so you need to get a Region A release if you're in the US, or get a region-free Blu-ray player. And let's face it, if you love physical media, you need a region-free Blu-ray player. But The First Power is absolutely awesome. It is available on streaming as well, so make sure to grab this one. Number 10, we have Doom Asylum, and this one is weird. It is wild, it is funny, it is crazy. It is not for people that have a stick up their ass. Let's face it, this movie is not great, but it's fun. It's so damn fun. If you enjoy people calling their boyfriends mom, if you enjoy people dancing and going into musical numbers or whatever for no reason, if you enjoy just like punks going to an abandoned hospital and getting chased around by this guy, you will love Doom Asylum. And if you love horror movies that are a bit weird, a bit out there, Doom Asylum is for you. This is an excellent release from Arrow Video, and it's from the same director of Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, which I do enjoy as well. That one's a bit weirder, or not as weird as this film is, but it is still out there, and this movie is just so much fun. It brings back memories of being a teenager. It brings back memories of breaking into, abandoned places as being a teenager and screwing around, basically, and wondering, well, what if there's something here? What if there is a killer? What if there's a monster here with us? That question is answered by Doom Asylum, and then some. An excellent physical media release and a really fun, funny horror movie. Number 11, we have probably the most not underrated film on the list, but I had to include it because Demons is just so good. It comes from Dario Argento and Lamberto Bava. It is an excellent Italian horror movie, an Italian zombie film. Even though they do turn into demons in this film, the soundtrack, if you're a heavy metal fan, you'll just love Demons for the soundtrack. Any movie that has Accept, Fast as a Shark playing while somebody's riding around on a freaking motorcycle with a samurai sword, chopping up demons, is an A+ in my book, and a movie that everyone needs to see. Demons, the effects are really great. The makeup is awesome. Everything about this film, it's funny. It's action-packed. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. There is Demons 2, this release from Arrow Video. There's this one, and then there's one from Synapse that both have 4Ks, but I prefer the Arrow Video version of Demons. But Demons is so great, so underrated. You know, a lot of people love talking about Italian horror. They don't bring up Demons as much as they should, and they should, because Demons is amazing from the soundtrack to the effects, everything. Great film. If you have not seen Demons and you love physical media, this release from Arrow Video is a must. A must. The 4K transfer here is wild. It is out of this world, beautiful, and the movie itself also kicks a whole lot of ass, so make sure to check out Demons. At our last 2 of the 13 underrated horror movies here, and we've got Hell Comes to Frogtown, and this is from Vinegar Syndrome with the special slipcover that they made last year or this year. It stars Rowdy Roddy Piper. If you love They Live, you'll love Hell Comes to Frogtown. This movie is just insane. It is batshit. It is wild. Every word that you can think of that would describe a crazy, insane movie, it describes Hell Comes to Frogtown. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful, lovingly crafted release from Vinegar Syndrome that makes this movie look as good as anything that they've ever done. And it is just such a post-apocalyptic sci-fi weirdo fest that you got to see it to believe it. And Hell Comes to Frogtown. If you can look at this cover and look at this hot frog lady on the back of it, and you can say, I don't really want to see that. You shouldn't be watching horror movies, but this is an amazing, amazing film. So check out Hell Comes to Frogtown if you're in for an underrated horror gem. The final one on our list is a recent one that I've watched for the first time, and that is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And this one, like Scare Package, it skewers horror movie tropes, it skewers slasher movie tropes, and it has Robert Englund in it. And Robert Englund plays a bit against type here, where he's playing a hero, actually. And this one is basically like The Office, except they're following a serial killer, a slasher villain. And, you know, it's original, it is weird, it is just gory as hell. If you haven't seen Behind the Mask, you should. I just watched it recently and I loved it. I can't wait to rewatch this one again and again and again, because I'm sure that there's stuff that, you know, I missed or whatever. And it has just a great cast, all of it. So if you haven't seen Behind the Mask, make sure to check it out. Get the physical media release from Scream Factory. And what are some underrated horror movies that you love? Did I get to any on the list? If you want to tell me some in the comments, go for it. I love hearing about people's underrated movies and what do they think is, you know, the definition of underrated. And if you love these movies and you want some more movies to watch for Halloween or horror movie marathon or whatever, check out this list right here. I did 31 movies for Halloween that you can check out and watch as a movie marathon or whatever you want.